You know, every single day we're all making huge decisions based on data. But have you ever stopped to think, what if that data's wrong? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on a process called data validation. It's the secret sauce that makes sure the information we count on is clean, correct, and ready to go. Okay, let's dive right in.
I'm sure you've heard this saying before, garbage in, garbage out. It's such a simple rule, right? But it applies to pretty much everything. If you use bad ingredients to bake a cake, well, you're going to get a bad cake. It's the exact same thing with data. You feed a computer messy or just plain wrong information, and you're going to get messy, wrong answers back. Data validation is the hero that stops the garbage right at the front door.
Think about it like this. Bad data is like a tiny little leak in a pipe. At first, it's just a small drip, maybe a misspelled name here or a phone number with one wrong digit there. But over time, that tiny little drip can turn into a huge flood, causing massive problems, like sending a package to the completely wrong house or making a huge business plan based on bad numbers.
And that flood, it is incredibly expensive. According to the research firm Gartner, the cost of bad data quality worldwide is over $3 trillion a year. I mean, that is just a mind-boggling amount of money wasted, all because of simple little errors that weren't caught early on.
So the big question is, how do we fix the leak? How do we stop the garbage? The absolute best way to picture data validation is to think of it as the security check at an airport, but it's for data. Let's see exactly how that works. So what is data validation? Simply put, it's the job of checking information to make sure it's correct and that it actually makes sense before you let it into a computer system. It's just like a security guard checking your ticket to make sure you're getting on the right plane. Data validation checks every little piece of data to make sure it's good enough to come inside. It's the ultimate gatekeeper for quality.
Now, this is something that trips a lot of people up, but it's a really important difference: validity versus validation. A validity check is kind of like looking at a box and just asking, hey, is this the right shape for an email address? It only checks the format. But validation actually looks inside the box and asks, is this a real email address that actually works? So one checks the container, the other checks what's inside.
Okay, so what is our data security guard actually looking for? To explain this, let's switch gears and head into the kitchen. Imagine you're a chef. Before you can even think about cooking, you have to check all your ingredients, right? Data validation is a lot like that, and it uses 5 main ingredient checks.
This table breaks it down perfectly. First up, you've got format. This is like making sure your carrots are diced and not left whole. For data, it's checking if an email has an @ symbol. Simple. Second, range. This makes sure you use the right amount of something, like a test score has to be between 0 and 100. Third is referential, which asks if all the ingredients actually go together. It's like checking that an order with a customer ID actually belongs to a real customer, so you don't get these weird ghost orders. Then there's completeness. Do you have all the essential stuff? You can't make a pizza without the dough. And finally, semantic, which just asks, does this even make sense? You can't ship a package before somebody orders it, right?
Now, these checks are super important, but they don't just happen once at random. Data validation is a whole process, one that gets woven into a project right from the very beginning. It's really a 4-step journey.
It all kicks off with a plan, where the whole team gets together and agrees on what perfect data should even look like. Next, they analyze the data they already have, sort of like a detective looking for clues to find out where mistakes usually hide. Then, in the design step, they build the rules right into the system's DNA, like putting up permanent guardrails on a highway. And finally, in develop and operate, they set up these automatic alarms that are watching the data 24/7, catching any bad data that tries to sneak past.
So, we've covered the what and the how, but now we get to the most important part of all, the why. Why on earth do we go through all this trouble just to check information?
And here's the real takeaway. Data validation isn't really about finding typos or fixing formatting. It's about building trust. It's that simple. When you know your information is solid and you know it's correct, you can trust it. And when you trust your data, you can be brave and confident when you make those big, important decisions, because you know you've got the right information to back you up.
So here's a quick and easy checklist you can use to think about data quality. First, is it accurate? Is it actually true? Is it complete? Are there any holes? Is it consistent? Does it say the same thing everywhere? Does it have validity? Is it following the rules? Is it timely? In other words, is it fresh? And is it unique?
or are there a bunch of copies? If you can say yes to all 6 of those, you're in really good shape. And this entire job is about to get a massive upgrade. The future of data validation is all about artificial intelligence, or AI. You can think of AI as this super detective that can spot really tricky error patterns in these huge mountains of data, the kinds of tiny mistakes that a person might never ever notice.
Which brings us to a final, really amazing idea. We're actually moving toward a world of self-driving data cleaning. Just imagine that for a second. A future where our data is smart enough to not only find its own mistakes, but to learn how to fix them, all by itself. What could we build then? What would be possible? Now that is something to think about.